So I'm super excited for you all to hear from my guest, Tanisha Malden, who is a business and estate planning attorney. She is a coach and a speaker. She's the founder of Generation Squared, a wealth education community, and Malden Law Firm. Tanisha has a background in finance, banking, and insurance before she started creating estate plans for women and their families. Now, during her estate planning meeting, she realized the discussion would be focused on generational wealth and how women could increase that wealth. Now we fast forward to 2020. While locked down, like we all were, Tanisha saw the opportunity to help fill the gap that was missing in the financial industry. Essential wealth building blocks and a community empowering women to build generational wealth and achieve financial independence through the power of their personalities. So please join me in welcoming Tanisha Malden, who is front and center today to talk about what it means to be simply living me. Buddy, my friend, my sister, Tasha Jones. If I had claps, I'd be like, yay! Hey, Tasha.
Hi, Charmaine.
Well, how does it feel to hear, whenever someone reads my bio, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted just listening to you. Because that really is kind of the time when you get to hear about yourself through other voices. So how do you feel when people, read your bio?
Well, I could say in jest like, girl, I'm a Leo, so I love it. But
this is true.
You put that out there. No, but I will, in all honesty, it took me a long time before I really saw myself the way others saw me. And so it took me like hearing people describe the way they saw me showing up to really start identifying my value and living in that. And then, applying that known value that my network helped me see. Yeah. And so hearing you describe me is, it feels really nice and it reinstills that confidence, right? We always get those moments where that confidence gets reinstilled. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday who I consider to be a mentor of mine. And she was like, okay, I know you've heard several people say how wonderful and amazing you are, but I need you to hear me when I say this, because I know you're not good with compliments. And there is something about hearing people reflect on you in those really awesome and powerful ways that, you just kind of say, yeah, I know they're just saying it just to say it. And then there's the time when you finally catch up to what they're saying and you're like, yeah, damn it. I am that, but it does take a lot of work and a lot of reinforcement and working on the confidence, but you know how it is. You can't be confident until you become courageous to accept that that's what it is. So I'm super excited that you are kind of sitting in that space now of recognizing how awesome you are.
It's so refreshing to live and sit in that space and authenticity. You know how we sometimes go through imposter syndrome where we question
all the time
of what we've accomplished. Yeah. Hear people say how they see you. And you have to, I have found that I've had to start owning that and really embracing it, because I'm denying the gift of standing in my bright light, like standing in the greatness that can have a ripple effect of inspiration and influence.
Oh, Tasha.
So it feels good to sit here.
I love that.
Yeah.
So
credit for that. Not just today, but always.
Say that again.
I credit you for introducing me to my value years ago.
Oh my God. Well, I appreciate that. This is what happens. Like, really? But speaking of that years ago, tell everybody how we met. Ooh. Or how long we've known each other, from where we know each other.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a moment of pause, right? So Charmaine and I, we both worked for a really large real estate company. And I had started with this company in 2005. And you'd already been there.
A year prior to you. I started in 2004.
2004?
Yeah.
Okay. So then come 2008, I embark on this challenge with a supervisor who was stifling me. Just what I have later come to understand this to be microaggressions.
Yeah.
Just challenges. And the situation was brought to your attention in your role at the company.
Yeah.
And the way that you showed up for me in such a measured way, where you listened, and I see you, and I was telling you that I'm being told that I don't have the best communication style, and I'm being told that I'm not quite ready yet. I haven't reached the ready mark, but they're not giving me a ready mark. And when I was sharing this with you, your response was, I am listening to a fluid communicator who's so assured of what, right?
Way more fluid and fluent communicator than I am and was. So confusing.
But there was like a breakthrough moment at that stage in my career where it could have been a moment that broke me, where I would have left the company and missed out on the blessing that would end up being another 12 years of learning and growth and development, sparked again by you facilitating an invitation for me to join an associate resource group that we called a cell.
That's right.
And that exposed me in new ways to the company and allowed me to showcase my communication skills.
Absolutely. And boy, did you do an amazing job being a part of a cell. And oh gosh, just bringing back so many memories. I remember when we first launched ERGs, but we called it Associate Resource Groups, or ARGs. And that was back in 2009-ish. When we did the Women's Resource Group, We Lead first. And that was I remember this, that was relatively easy to launch. When we got to the Black Associate Resource Group, and the CFO was the executive sponsor. You remember Bob was the executive sponsor. It was a whole nother level of bringing on and launching an employee resource group that was focused on race and ethnicity. But you all did an amazing job, and I loved, even after I left, you still continued. You know, the group continued until, of course, they were bought, and then there was all that stuff, right? But I just remember thinking to myself how important it was to find a way to highlight some of the most awesome people in the organization that, from my perspective, felt overlooked or weren't visible enough with the people who were making the decisions. So that was part of my, part of the master plan, in addition to, you know, helping the organization to grow in at that time, the D&I space. So, so that's how we met, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, that's your superpower. From my vantage point, is you know how to elevate voices and introduce us in a way that positions us to be seen. And And we rose to the occasion. Like you opened the door and we rose to the occasion.
Sure
we
did.
showed up and we were at the ready to contribute, to exchange ideas, to get uncomfortable, but then to represent the organization exceptionally well. And I think that that company can credit you for being awarded, a leader in integrating or implementing diversity initiatives, right? Like you were instrumental in that.
Well, somebody had to do it.
Well, you did it. You did it flawlessly. I know. This is what's going to happen today, Charmaine. This is going to be us like complimenting each other.
I know. Like, oh my God, they're going to be like, oh, get a room.
And we will. But meanwhile.
Yeah, but in the meantime.
This is what's like. In the meantime, we're just going to lift each other up. That's what we do. And it's Women's History Month, so it's appropriate.
It is absolutely appropriate. But here's the deal. That's what we do. That's what we do as women. That's what we do with great friends and colleagues. That's just what we do. And that I think is a woman's superpower. We find a way to help support and elevate each other. It's just that these months, like, this month being Women's History Month, it's just a reminder. It's just a way to remind us of how amazing we are. So yeah, girl, I'm all for it. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Tasha. First off, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, personally, and then I want you to move into the professional side of you and share with our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself from a professional standpoint.
I love that question about who you are. I like to say that I'm a woman who lives in her value, passion, and purpose, lives in this alignment of value, passion, and purpose. And so when you talk at the opening of what's it like to hear you described in these ways, well, I've come to a point in my life where I am so assured in the value I bring in terms of being an intent listener and being a very determined collaborator and being a person who can connect people through really complex issues. And that's what enables me to bring the gift of narrative, storytelling, marketing, and integrating diverse perspectives and voices. And so what that enables me to do is apply those value gifts into my passion to align myself with anything that's lifting up youth and education, and anything that, back to like us cheering each other on, lifting up, advancing women in business. And so I know that is my purpose in this life, is to like apply my value to things that are lifting up our babies and helping them continue their education and advancing women in the workforce.
Yeah, I love that. So you and I never really talked about this, but how did you make the decision after leaving how did you make the decision to leave the corporate world and enter into entrepreneurship? Because you and I never really talked about that.
I know. It's interesting. So the decision occurred. So I knew that the project I was working on with our former company, that it was slated to last like 20 to 25 years. And so I arrived like 5 years into the project. So I kept thinking, like, this is going to be roughly my, I'm going to finish out here and go on to the next thing. And then suddenly the sunset period was approaching. And so it was 2017 when I started thinking, what's my next move? What am I going to do next? And I thought, is the company going to create an opportunity for me? There's never a guarantee there, but I'd be open to it. Am I going to work for another developer? This would be my second real estate company that I'd worked in. So do I go work for another real estate developer, build on that niche?
Yeah.
Or do I create my own thing? Do I become a consultant And one of the things that I was highly adept at in my role, I wore a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Being the marketer, the brand strategist, the community relations person, the government affairs person,
all the things.
Did it all. And I was trying to figure out a way that I could apply my experience of threading diversity, equity, inclusion through our storytelling in a time when no one was talking about it. I made it a conscious effort for us to be really respectful of other communities through our storytelling. And I thought, well, I could make a business of this for other developers, other builders, et cetera. So I spent 3 years starting in 2017, mapping out what could that look like? Where would I work? What would the business plan be? What would the name be? And my flaw or my disservice I'd been doing to myself was such a hard worker, would work till really long hours, make sure everything got done. I'd never tell anybody what I did.
Yeah.
How I did it. And so when I was going through that exploration, I had a colleague who was helping me with my business development plan. He said, Tasha, no one knows what you do.
Yeah.
I've seen what you do. We got to get your thought leadership out there. So I started toying with it. Let me write some blog stories talking about what I think. And the way my network, who I'd only showed up in the community to be of service to, but never talked about what I did.
Yeah.
Suddenly they were at attention. And that's when I started to realize, okay, I think I can start tiptoeing into a side hustle. Still maintain the security of W-2.
Absolutely.
And then ultimately, Charmaine, fast forward, I realized that I had all the safety nets in place. I'd taken 3 years to, put money into building this business. And it got to a point in, December 2020 when it was like, girl, you got to launch this thing.
Yeah.
It's now or never.
But you know how typical that is in terms of thinking about having an idea, doing the research, putting in the work to build it out. And then it just kind of sits there and we don't tell anyone because we're scared. Even if it's not so visible to you, but it's like, I'm too scared to tell people this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm going to be doing, or I have this idea. And we sit on it and we sit on it and we sit on it until finally you either say to yourself or someone says to you, hey, whatever happened to, what are you planning to do? And you're like, I've been sitting on this for 3 years. For example, my coffee mugs.
Okay.
3 years.
I need one.
3 years for coffee mugs, Charmaine. Really. The, content that I built that you see is from 3 years ago. They're freaking coffee mugs. That as an example, right? And I think those are the realities of when you start to do something new. And as minor as it sounds with coffee mugs, that is just a small example of what demonstrates our imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, self-doubt that gets in the way of us truly being our most and truest self, right? Like you sat on being who you really are, just like I have sat on some things, which is, I'm excited to start to share more about, but you're robbing yourself and others of the gift that God has given you and placed you on this earth to actually do. And that in of itself is scary. Yes. Because when you figure out this is exactly why I'm here, that's scary.
And I think that's why it's so important that we share it.
Yeah.
I think about this time, there's only one time that I chose to run a half marathon.
At least you had one time. You thought, I thought it. I thought of running a 5K.
I mean, hey, it's like baby steps. You just like get into it. So this half marathon back in 2011, I'm like, I'm going to run this, but I'm going to hold myself accountable. So I'm going to start sharing in social that I'm doing this thing.
Yeah.
Because there's no way I'm going to suddenly halfway through the training tell people I decided I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And so by sharing, and people were encouraging me, I ran that half marathon. I completed it, and I felt so proud of myself because it was out of my realm. I grew up a sprinter.
Okay.
The 400 meters seemed like long distance to me, which I'm told it's a sprint, whatever. And so here I'm doing this half marathon. I give that example in terms of the sharing, where when I started to share out my thought leadership with the blog stories, letting people know what I'm trying to build, your network wants to be there for you.
They do.
They want to support you and encourage you and cheer you on. And that's what happened. People became curious, like, wait, I'm seeing these stories like every week or every month. What's going on? And what are you up to? And then it opens the door to share. And then people start saying, oh, you have a side hustle? Look, I need your value.
Yeah.
I need your expertise over here. Can I 1099? Can I be a subcontractor? And you're like, yes. But it opens the doors. And so I think we block our blessing when we hold it to ourselves in fear.
Absolutely. When I went out on my own, my sense of value didn't catch up with my actions until later. And what I mean by that is, there are certain things that you need to do. You need to register your company with the state. You need to get an EIN. You need to get a business checking account. Those were those activities, right? But my head was still not in the sense of value that I was bringing to this work hadn't caught up with you're creating a business, you change your LinkedIn profile. Well, what happened was when I changed the profile, that's when people started reaching out. Oh, you all have your own consulting practice. We need to talk.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was literally that simple, but internally, I was still trying to catch up to, oh, this is what I'm doing now. Oh, people do want this. It was an interesting phenomenon. And so I can connect with what you're saying when you started, putting yourself out there and writing the blogs and putting your thought leadership out into the universe. And that sometimes just that one action, or as they say, that one movement can turn into momentum. And so that happened. That seemed to have happened for you.
It's exactly what happened. And I'd like to circle back to you as an inspiration, because you jumped into consulting before I did. So I still was like cemented in fear. Yeah. And you were taking a step out on like faith and planning and all the things. And so that idea of how we inspire each other, like let's say you stayed fearful. I wouldn't have benefited from the gift of seeing you lead into your gift.
Wow. Yeah.
I remember calling you and asking you how to do it. And just the encouragement that you said, you were like, I'm telling you, you can do this, Tasha. And it still took me 2 more years.
Yeah,
But you led by example. Like I watched your leadership in this journey. And now I have folks reaching out to me the way I reached out to you. And so watching you and having this conversation is just this reminder of that lesson in don't let your fear hold back your gift and the gift of the ripple effect of inspiration that it will lead. Yeah.
We clearly don't know half the time who's really watching. And I, on a daily, I get those reminders because, I'm just being me, especially on social media, and I've learned that people love to follow the journey, not the, the success that you've had, but the journey, all the pivots and changes, the ups and downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They actually follow that. So giving them the behind the scenes is just as important as telling them what you accomplished, because then they can see themselves in you and realize that, oh, okay, fear, yep, that's normal. Imposter syndrome, yep, that's normal. Because I didn't think she had a problem with that. Yep, we all do.
We all do.
But
what anyone who says that they don't,
they're lying to you, y'all. Yeah. If they are telling you that they have mastered this and they've mastered that, they are lying to you.
I mean, Tremaine, have you mastered anything? I mean, aside from being really clear on your value,
girl, my values have changed.
Still learning?
No. Well, let me clarify.
Yeah.
With therapy last year, I learned that some of my values are not serving me well today.
Ooh.
So we are always changing. We are always learning. And one would say your values are always going to remain the same, but I'm here to tell you, not all of them. Not all of them. So I think it's important to know who you are and what you're about, and recognizing that those things will change too. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but I've gone through a whole transformation in about a year's time.
Well, throw in a pandemic and that'll make everything concentrated.
Let's throw that in there too. Yeah. So I'm loving this conversation we're having. So let me also get really clear with you about the first year of entrepreneurship. What did you think it was going to be versus what it is?
I mean, I thought I knew how to function in a department, how to lead a team, how to align everyone toward a goal. And what I did not anticipate was, remember the benefit of having support, administrative support? Oh, that's me. Got it. Lesson learned. I mean, that was the most shocking of having to manage everything.
Yes.
And I always appreciated the support I had in corporate.
Yeah.
Always appreciate it. When I became that first year, I was like, oh, I get it. And I've been an admin before, so I was able to revert back to my humble beginnings. Mm-hmm. But it was overwhelming trying to figure out the time management.
Absolutely.
Here's when you manage your administrative. Here's when you do the business development. Here's when you do the work.
Yeah, because then there's that, right? Delivery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was something I wasn't expecting. I don't know why. Because I didn't have an administrative assistant on hire.
Superwoman, I'm going to do it all. Because we don't think that we can afford help too in the beginning, right? Because there's this fear of, making financial security and making sure that you're bringing in enough income to not just run the business, but live. And it is this unique balance of the investment of my time is better served in client-facing, client delivery than it is to be doing admin work. And when you start breaking down, well, okay, maybe right now it's part-time, virtual, outsourced, right? There are so many different creative ways that people get around getting help. I had just as an example of that, I first couple years I had someone who worked a full-time job, but kind of wanted to help me on the side. And she was a night owl and I was not. So, we created a cadence of communicating with each other. And it was one of those things where I'd wake up in the morning and the work is done. So there's so many creative ways to get support or to get help that don't look like, oh my God, I got to hire somebody, or, I can't afford to outsource this. And we just tend to say we can't do it. And then we don't. And then we drown. And then it's like, this business isn't working.
Because it's not. One of the models I've set up for myself is to have like 5 retainer clients and then have 5 projects. 3, 6 month, 9 month, that type of duration of project. So that I'm keeping things really diversified, but if a retainer falls off, I know that I've got some projects in the queue. Well, by the last half of last year, I filled up every single slot and I'm like, oh no.
It's like a dream. And then it's like, oh shit.
Exactly. I just had an oh shit moment. And so I realized like, well, who do I trust to, because that's the big key, right? Yeah. Who do I trust to support me on the side, coordinate their hours? I think I need maybe 15, 20 hours a month from this person. And you know what I did? Remember I told you, I so value my assistants that I've had in the past. I reached out to my former admin and because I trust her implicitly. Yeah. And so I reached out and so how do you feel about a little extra cash? And then, because here's what I'm thinking. And so we met for a couple months, thought through it. And like I said, I think it'd be great if you could start in August. And she did, she saved my bacon. Like she came in and just, to your point, on her hours, she like helped organize like, hey, these are the hours I see you putting in. It looks like a couple clients need more focus. Right. What's the status of all these things that I'm seeing in your Microsoft Daily Digest? She just like kept me on my game so that things couldn't fall through the cracks. And it was life-saving. Yeah. Yeah. But it took me a year and a half to realize, I think I'm going to have to make this. Because I kept telling myself, no, I want to get a business development coach first. We can learn ourselves, certify ourselves and all the things. And that becomes the unintended excuse to not go. Right. Yeah. Like, because you feel like those are the things that are going to validate you and give you more credibility, when the reality is, girl, you didn't need that business coach to get those 10 clients. You didn't need. Now, I am all for professional development. Don't get me wrong. Preach. But no, it's not a but. And we need to know when it is appropriate for the season that we're in or the season that we're going to, and invest accordingly, but not for the wrong reasons. Not because I'm feeling self-doubt that my clients don't trust me enough or don't value what I bring to the table. Chances are that's just in your freaking head. As Brene Brown's The Story We Tell Ourselves. The story we tell ourselves, right? But I find that we invest so much money into getting help or getting the paper, the letters behind our name for validation, that it causes us to delay what we're meant to do and what we're meant to be.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we get in our own way.
Yeah.
That's been another great lesson through this journey is, like, I lead teams really well. I can create a structure and I know what way we're moving. And I've always said I have the ability to be adaptable in the corporate realm, but when it's your own business and you feel permitted to keep things really structured, that's a lie. Like, you are not permitted to keep things really structured. You have to be fluid. And so I've learned to, like, I'll have these plans of, these are the credentials I want. This is the number of clients I want. This is how I want to, I've had to learn to get really adaptable and willing to pivot when there's a different opportunity that presents itself, or Tasha, that's not your journey today. Like, that's not what you're doing today.
Right. Yeah. We do a lot of self-talk, don't we?
If anybody, no one needs to be in this head. Like, I appreciate the interview, but to get in this head is not like, no one wants access to that.
Don't want to be inside our heads. No, because there's a lot of talking that goes on. Trust and believe. Yeah. Yeah. There was something that you had said about, I'm going to paraphrase, designing your business the way that you want to, right? So I'll give you an example. When I started my business, even from a wardrobe perspective, I threw away the suits. You know, they weren't matching. They were, unmatched suits and more casual fare, because that's what I'm comfortable. That's what I wanted to do. I no longer felt like I needed to put the costume on. And I was perfectly fine with wearing the costume at that time. But when you start to build and create your own, you get to define and design how you want to show up in your most authentic way. So did you think about those things when you went out on your own?
There's a couple ways in terms of like how I present and show up. I just love fashion and dressing up and being styled and dialed. That's just
she has great fashion sense, y'all.
Yeah, my version of casual might be another person's version of dressy. I don't know, but I just do what I do.
Yeah.
But, I was asked this question at a Denver Metro Chamber event about how are you feeling about not being in the corporate world and now being on your own? And I tell people, that when you feel like you're doing what you should do, like, I should have this W-2 job, I should have the stability, I should show up in this way. And we've all done the shoulds. And then, I look at where I sit today, embarking, like, now I'm in the early stages of my 3rd year in business.
That's amazing.
And I'm sitting at the table with people who care about diversity, equity, inclusion. They've committed to it. They've, detailed initiatives. They're implementing their actions. They're doing all these things. So I'm at the table with folks who want to put their best foot forward in inclusion, belonging, access, equity, diversity. And it feels so good to be like seen and recognized and valued in that contribution of how they tell their story.
Yeah. And
helping them tell others about how they too can do this work. And so I tell people, I'm no longer living in my should, but I'm living in my must, in bringing my value to a lot of different places, a lot of different companies where, you work for one organization.
Yeah.
And you're serving a lot of different people, but it's under one umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I get to live in my must of working across a lot of different industries and sectors where I don't have to be like siloed in just real estate.
Right. Right. So your must are my I get to.
Yes.
So instead of I should be or I must do, I get to. I get to create what I want. I get to decide which clients I want to work with and for. I get to decide my hours. I get to decide when I get to go on vacation. You see what I'm saying? Like, I get to do these things now. So, yeah, interesting.
That's it, to get to have a choice.
Yeah.
In how you show up, where you show up, who you show up for.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
So what was some of the best and important advice you received either before you started your own business or over these past almost 3 years?
Couple things. The first one, me being a structured person, the best advice within the first month of starting, like going full time. Mm-hmm. So I maintained a side hustle for about 6 or 7 months. And then I finally was encouraged by my network. It's now or never, Tasha, you need to go full time. And so that person who said, just get 5 retainer clients, that was the best advice. And then me being an overachiever, like I said earlier, and then adding those 5 projects, and then discover that you need an admin to keep you from drowning. And then the other advice was just applying grace. So I met with other business owners who've been, doing this for a decade, and they had told me, you're always figuring it out. Yeah. Every year you're learning something new that you didn't know the year before. Yeah. So we're all just figuring out, so that, just having that network to say, okay, you're 10 years in. Did you ever have to do this? And then being able to have that counsel, but also being able to apply grace to myself. It's okay that I didn't know that. Yeah. It's okay that I didn't know that I should have liability insurance. What? But let me get that real quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you don't want them taking all your stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's the little things, but important things. Oh my gosh. So I'm thinking of all these amazing questions that were not a part of our list. And so I'm like,
that's okay. I love the extemporaneous flow.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to pause for a second so I can get my thoughts together, and thank God someone's going to be editing this. Okay. But it was something that you said about.
We should make a blooper reel.
Oh, there will be.
Back to the program at hand.
Yeah. And scene.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I lost the thought, but that's okay. All right. So, Tasha, now this podcast is called the Simply Living Me podcast. And so I am so curious to find out when you hear Simply Living Me, what does that mean to you?
Did you notice my body language?
I know.
Exhale. It just feels so good to not be trying to conform to fit in someone's arbitrary definition of what success looks like, of what their career track looks like, just being able to say, and this is why I talk about my value, passion, purpose, because it helps me vet where I'm going to show up, how I'm going to show up, who I'm going to show up for. Mm-hmm. Knowing, being so assured in the value I bring, and just simply living in this confidence of this is the value I bring. Listening and receiving when people tell story of how they see you. Yeah. And if it's filling my cup and I'm like, that's right, I did do that. Standing tall in that. Mm-hmm. And then how do I apply that to my passion areas? Living in purpose. And so I think Simply Living Me is living in that alignment of value, passion, purpose. And so if something's not aligned with my mission, my desire, my purpose to advance youth and education and help women move forward and move up in the workforce, wherever they see themselves fitting. I don't need to pine to make myself belong to something that doesn't align with how I want to show up in this world. And so when I give this presentation about alignment of value, passion, purpose, I say to people I determine how I show up in the workplace. I define how I show up in the workplace, in my community, for my family, making sure it keeps in alignment of me simply living me and my value, passion, purpose.
I love how that sounds.
It keeps me it keeps me from not extending myself in ways that don't serve me. Like you were saying, sometimes your value changes. It's not serving you.
Yeah.
Being really clear about that helps me then know how I'm applying to my passion and purpose.
Yeah. It's interesting. Simply living me came up because I remember when I made the transition from the corporate world to entrepreneurship. And at the time, while I was starting the consulting practice, I had also gotten involved in this health and wellness business. And that was where I was really, really visible on social media. And I remember one of my very dear friends had shared with me that one of our colleagues from the company that you and I worked with pulled her to the side and said, "Is Charmaine really that happy? Is she really, what she portrays on social media, is that really what's going on?" And my girlfriend was like, "Absolutely. Absolutely." So when she shared that with me, I was like, so I guess I forgot how I put it, but I said, I'm just simply living me, right? That I'm now, if I ever felt like I wasn't if I was feeling like I was being my authentic self working in corporate America, I really feel that way now. So I'm just simply living me. That's where it came from, because somebody pissed me off.
I mean, sometimes when you're put under pressure, what comes out,
right,
or diamond, right? But yeah, that's, first of all, when you first said that, I felt like a visceral reaction to having that comment, that inquiry.
Yeah. But it was projection. It's projection,
that, right?
It's projection and a little jealousy, a little FOMO, a little.
You think about that, right? Like at the beginning, we talk about how we're going to be cheering each other on throughout this whole conversation. And there's a vibration, an energy, a positivity. I feel good when I lift you up.
Absolutely.
And I'd imagine it makes you feel good.
It makes me feel amazing.
You lift me up, right? So, and so why not just lift people up and be happy for other people's happiness? Because it doesn't feel good when you allow that jealousy to creep in. It doesn't serve you.
Well, and then when you realize it's not a me issue, it's a you issue.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But being able to discern that, and, there was a time when that would stick to me in such a way that it would be damaging, as opposed to now it's like, oh, of course, there was a visceral reaction, but, it's kind of like, really? Girl, get you a life, Go get some life, Stop worrying about me and go figure out your life.